Okay. It is time to take your calls, and I will be up at Cabrillo College. There'll be a reception for her from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. The telephone number, if you want to attend the reception, is $10, 458-0303, $10 for the reception. And at 8:30, she will be at the Cabrillo Student Center. That's this coming Wednesday, and it's free to hear her. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering.
Do you have music on, or is this going to be all night? What's that?
No, I don't have any music on, just your program.
What? Okay, go on.
Yeah, I was wondering, what do you think about the possibility of the Federal Reserve Board establishment being the first real coup, being as it had been fought for 126 years by patriotic Americans?
Well, I have never done broadcasts on the Federal Reserve because there's a lot of books and a lot of literature out, and that isn't really the expertise. I am interested in political assassinations as a way to control the government. Financial manipulations is very important, but the Federal Reserve material, there are many, many books, and I have lots of books on it, but I've never done broadcasts on it because of, well, it didn't interest me personally, the Federal Reserve problem. It should, but I have to narrow my interest down to some places, and there's a lot of material that people can have, and I'm sure you've studied it, so I'm not going into it. Okay?
Okay, well, I was going to say that all these things seem to tie together in a Satanist cult called the Illuminati.
I know that. I know that they do, and there's a lot of literature on it. And the Federal Reserve is important, and I have many, many books and lots of material on it.
But you don't think they're tied in with the assassination?
I didn't say they're not. Right now, I'm not saying they're not. I also think that the military connections and the police department connections to these things that have been going on for years is very important because you lose trust. That's what that particular play was about that we saw last night. When you lose trust in the people that protect you, you have nobody had trust in the bankers anyway in that establishment. When you lose trust in the local police, in the local district attorney's office, in the Justice Department, just like when these parents go and can get no help, there's no law to protect young children from sexual abuse and satanic rituals. I'm more interested in that right now. I don't say they don't relate together, but I will not...
I think that would be an excellent source of funding, a company that could print up money, exclusive money of the United States government.
Oh, yeah, well, they're not short of money. Thanks a lot. Okay. I have files on missing money, millions, billions, maybe $1 trillion, if you added up all the files and all the counterfeit money and the money that's been put aside. These groups don't lack money, and we'll find out someday how much money they have. I think that's very scary. But the Federal Reserve is a linkage that has been very controversial for some people, and it is a controversial subject. I admit that. It's just one that I didn't particularly go into, as I say, because political assassinations and mutilation and human rights are the areas I'm really concerned about, and the medical experiments and the food and poisons. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, May. A book on this occult subject that rounds up the Nazi movement pretty nicely is a guy named Trevor Ravenscroft, The Spear of Death.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to put that on the list. That's one of those I was going to put on next week. Yeah, The Spear of Destiny.
Right on. One thing, I've kind of tried to follow this, the evolution of this movement, and it occurs to me that after World War II, they moved down to South America, aside from their activities in the United States. I'm wondering, do you have any information on what's going on down in South America with the, these, ex-Nazis and stuff? And,
how long have you been listening to World Watchers?
Well, for a while, yeah.
Oh, because for years I've had the Argentine, Brazil, Bolivia, Nazi connections, and they go back to Rome, to Licio Gelli, Roberta Calvi, and to Washington, the Klaus Barbie connections to our intelligence community and the death squads that were preserved after the war with the help of Heinrich Himmler and the Waffen-SS and Alan Dulles of the OSS. I've just done so much on that.
Okay, are there any particular books on the Nazi satanic movement down in South America?
The satanic movement.
Yeah.
No, there's been a lot of material of, you don't call it the Satan rituals, Reverend Moon with Klaus Barbie and that material. The closest to the satanic rituals, well, I guess it's just cold-blooded murder, is a colonial dignitad run by Germany, and also our America's top Nazis had safe haven there. It borders between Chile and Argentina. But this is plain just cutting up people, slicing them up, burning them alive, letting dogs eat them alive. I don't know how much ritual part there is in these murders because we're not there. Or the Argentine death squads, the Chile death squads. I'm not really sure. If they're part of the Waffen SS, then they're directly tied into the ritual killings. And they were from the Waffen SS, SS Karl Wolf, and the people that worked with Alan Dulles that brought the rat line. Licio Gelli built that and let them out of the country. So these sadistic murders and killing of thousands of people, 100,000 Guatemala and El Salvador and so forth, they are a ritualistic in that these people identify with that knighthood and with the bond from the Waffen SS and have sworn to a 1,000-year Reich. And also G. Gordon Liddy talks in the book Secret Agenda about his affinity for the Odessa, which is the Waffen SS, and he's very much part of the organization, as are people in Washington with these people. So the fine line between killing for joy or for knighthood, the way they're killed down there, we don't know. They just disappear. We don't know if they're ritual murders or not, but the people doing it are directly linked to the ritual killers.
Jeez.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty bad, huh?
Super show, man.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Can you imagine? We went for 5 hours in San Francisco of people telling their stories and what their children went through, and the psychologists who are trying to help these people. And as I say, two of the most moving examples of hearing people speak at this meeting yesterday at this very fine top of the mark hotel, sitting and talking about mutilations in America. It seems so in Congress to be having a Sunday afternoon. This one Dr. Polk said, we shouldn't be here on a day like this. We should be watching the 49ers. And Barbara and I thought it's because you watch the 49ers that you're here. You people have no responsibility on a day-to-day level for these horrendous things. You have turned your back on them, and all of a sudden your kids are taken away. I suggest for all people I know, turn off all television except an occasional 2 or 3 shows a week, and look around you, read these papers, and look around and write public officials and have conversations. We better do the conversations while we can still do it. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, I'd like to bring to your attention, and as you know already, a review of a book in today's Mercury News. It's by Jonathan Whitney.
Oh, yes.
Crimes of Patriots.
Yes, I've mentioned it, but I haven't had a chance to talk much about on the air.
About Nugan Bank.
Yeah, the whole book's on Nugan
I might call attention to your readers then, or to your listeners about
Please do, sure.
Book. It's a book called The Crimes of Patriots by Jonathan Whitney, reviewed in the Sunday literature section of the Mercury News.
Do you want to share some of the review? Do you have it there?
No, I have it here, but it's lengthy in detail, but it's very good.
Well, it's very, very important because the Nugan operation was run again by Henry Kissinger and Task Force 157 in Washington with George Bush when he was CIA director, and Theodore Shackley and Thomas Kleins, the defendants in the Christic suit. And it involves a large amount of money, $1 billion that's missing, and the 13 primary witnesses were murdered, about 13 before the story ever broke in the London Times. The first item I got was from the London Times. And this is, again, the real world, the people that killed Salvador Allende, that work in our National Security Council, in our Defense Department, and they're linked to the murder of Orlando Letelier in Washington, D.C., and the Air Cuba that was blown up, and through that whole time period of a lot of murders. George Bush was CIA director, and of course, George Bush is part of the Brotherhood of Death. I've talked about it from time to time, and has rituals, the ceremony or rituals of indoctrination, of getting into coffins and digging up graves, and it's part of a clique at Yale. William Buckley is part of it, and there are stories that Bush dug up the body of Geronimo, the Indian leader, and has his had in formaldehyde in the basement at Yale.
I've got a question to ask you. Maybe you've ever so often you hear in the past about Reagan signing a thing he called a finding.
The finding, yes.
We know, I know one, for example, one finding allowed the sale of Stinger missiles to the Mujahideen after it already happened.
Yes, yeah, it backdates it, that's right.
Well, I want to ask the question I'll take off the air, or the answer is, how many other presidents have signed findings, and what exactly are they? That's my question.
Well, a finding, okay, you want to take it off the air? Okay. A finding is that at the time of the Watergate, Henry Kissinger came to power with Richard Nixon after they had tucked the Kennedy brothers into their graves and escalated the war in Southeast Asia, where 45,000 Americans killed, not to speak of the Asians, and spread, hundreds of millions of gallons of napalm on the villages, on the people that affected our soldiers and other people. It was decided at the time of the hearings of Senator Frank Church that there would be a finding that the president would sign indicating that these things were happening and that these private wars would be limited by his putting these together on paper and being accountable that he knew these things were happening. And, of course, the Senate and House intelligence were supposed to be clued in and told about these findings, that this is what we're going to do and this is why, and be notified in what they called a reasonable time. And, of course, when Reagan was caught, he backdated, he juggles the evidence around and backdates it, and didn't even sign it when the things were happening, but said, well, these feeble excuses. Those findings were supposed to be the notification of what he was doing, and Congress, of course, wasn't notified. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, Mae.
Yeah.
Yeah, to bring the matter that you've mostly discussed over your broadcast, and I thank you for it, a little closer to home, I'm going to have to go back to that Christy McManus I spoke of.
Oh,
she has been the center of, in the Monterey Bay area, in Monterey and Santa Cruz counties, of a satanic child sacrifice molestation ring, although...
Where can we get material, as long as they're mentioning his name on the air? Tell me where I can get material that he's part of the satanic ring.
No, Christy, it's a woman.
Huh?
The Christy McManus is a woman.
Oh, it's a woman. Okay, yeah. Where? Yeah, and there's women very much involved. Where do we get...
I don't have anything written down for you. All I have is the experience of many people's observations.
Have any people gone to the police department?
Yes. As you pointed out earlier, the police and the DAs tend not to do anything, and in Santa Cruz County they pretty much haven't, although I've definitely outlined it for them and other higher authorities.
Okay. Do you know people... Hello?
I'm still here.
Do you know people that were involved or part of the satanic rituals? Do you know people actually who were part of it, taken as victims?
As victims?
Yes.
No, I don't know any victims that survived.
Okay. Do you know the people who participated in it?
Yes, I do know the people. I do know people who are participating in this with her.
Okay. Can you send a list? Why would those people tell the police department that they're doing this? Hello?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Why would they tell the police?
No, these were observers that were not a part of it, but were able to see, like myself, what was going on.
Oh, did they say at the yourself? Did you see this?
Yes, I've seen some of this with Christy McManus. Yes.
Oh, you were at her place?
At several of the places where she uses, yes.
Oh, if you were in a court of law, would you testify on it?
Yes, I certainly would.
Then can you describe some of the things you saw?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, she films children in sexual situations with her and her people. And
where does she get the children from?
She kidnaps them.
Okay.
Them kidnapped and shipped over state lines.
Okay.
And she works with that Gavin B. Becker down in Beverly Hills, and as I've said that over the air before, I believe, and she also works closely with Teague, a guy mentioned in the Soldier of Fortune magazines, and with G. Gordon Liddy.
Oh, my goodness. Can you write an outline? How do you know she works with a man from Soldier of Fortune?
This Teague, okay, from my research on her, Christy McManus, and G. Gordon Liddy, those three are united, and they're operating in the Central California Monterey Bay area.
Oh, my goodness. They're going to investigate. You know, the largest nursery school complex of little children is the military, and these children are abused all over. They don't have reports yet from children of Fort Ord that are at the daycare centers.
Yeah.
But the Central Americas had a large number of children that have been murdered and mutilated.
Yeah, well, Christy McManus, what she did is there was a woman, Jennifer McSheen Mills, she had murdered up in San Francisco. It was a very sensational murder. And, of course, they didn't catch the secret team of hers behind it, of course. Somebody took the fall for it on the front. But then Christy McManus has been involved in infiltrating military bases, including Fort Ord.
But see, maybe what I'm reading now is that they didn't infiltrate, they were part of it.
Yeah, well, infiltrate means she gets her people enlisted into the military, and then they come up in rank, and then they're in there, or she recruits people who are already there.
Oh, yeah, because the military is part of the Church of Seth, so that would make sense that they're part of it. Well, if you would...
Christy McManus is a Satan-worshipping priestess.
Okay.
And she came out of San Jose, but she spread down in the other areas that I mentioned.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Manson family had the nucleus in San Jose. Do you have a typewriter? Could you type up some of this for me? Or write it out?
I could definitely write it out and get it to you.
Okay, because I'm going to send a report, as I say, to the Armed Services Committee and to the San Francisco officials. There's a large network in Salinas and in this area. And it's very important that, as the button and the organization now is called Enough is Enough. Yeah.
Okay, well, I can say this over there also. What I did is I was back at Fort Meade, Maryland, the headquarters of military intelligence, and I talked with several people back there about this, and they said they would definitely do something about it.
Well...
And whether they will or not, but I told them that she also has aspects, she's a breakaway Satan worshiper, meaning her group is broken away from some of these other main nationwide groups.
But see, what they do, this is very important, is that Anton LaVey was in San Francisco Bay Area with the Mansons and with that group and his sacrifices and the naked women and all the rituals, okay?
He's living down here in Capitola now.
Yeah. He was. And then in 1975, up till 1975, say from 1971 to 75, Michael Aquino studied with Anton LaVey. He said the movie Rosemary's Baby just happened to turn him on, okay? Yeah. So he worked with LaVey. And then in 1975, he splinters and does his own group and has top secret security clearance. LaVey's in San Francisco, so they give birth. They have a training period like an apprenticeship and then give birth. And he felt LaVey wasn't kind enough to Satan, that he was selling material things, but that he recognizes and adores Satan. You understand?
Yeah.
So that the breaking off doesn't mean they're not the same. It just means that now we have an apprenticeship. It's time to be on our own.
Oh yeah, just multiplies it.
Multiply, exactly.
Yeah, just spread out. Yeah, because up here there's a large number of, there was a CIA station up here in Santa Cruz, and they were using a church as a front, and Christy McManus infiltrated and recruited and worked with a large group of those people, and they were the right-wing Nazi type of CIA agents.
Well, you see, this is what we heard at the conference yesterday, that a lot of this sexual activity takes place in churches.
Oh, yeah, the CIA has been using missionaries all over the world, Christian missionaries as a front. It's ideal for them.
Yeah, and in the United States, a lot of this is taking place in the church where these children are taken away from an ordinary daycare center that they think they're safe with on a military base and private care centers like the McMartin where the mutilation. One person, or one of the two that came up from the area of McMartin down there in California, Manhattan Beach, said it is the murder capital of the world, or the assault upon children, and there were literally, I forget how many, hundreds of children sexually assaulted there, and there isn't one case of stopping them, and there's this network throughout the United States.
Yeah, McManus is networked in a lot of Christian churches. She's networked in there, and her people operate in there with these satanic activities with these children. As these churches as a front, San Jose and Santa Clara and Santa Cruz counties are at the center of it, and she's moved heavily into Monterey County.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah,
we'll have to make a map of the United States and put on, not make it, copy one, and put into these various places where it is being reported in the news, and I'm going to have to go through my articles that I saved and mark these places and get a report and say, why the Joint Chief of Staff are members of the Church of Set. Studying Mein Kampf and making decisions for wars such as like in the Persian Gulf when their goal is Armageddon.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to mention two books for the listeners in there that you forgot to mention. There's Peace, Prosperity, and the Coming Holocaust by a man named Hunt, and then there's Constance Cumbies.
Wait, is there a book called, what's it called?
Peace, Prosperity, and the Coming Holocaust
Peace,
by Hunt.
yeah.
I forgot his first name. And then there's Constance Cumbies, Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. That deals.
Wait, you're going too fast. Peace, Prosperity, and what?
The Coming Holocaust.
Okay, who wrote that?
A man named Hunt. He has a last name of Hunt.
Okay.
When you put the two together, it'd be easy to find the book. And then there's Constance Cumby wrote Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, and that...
Oh, I have her book.
Yeah, okay. Both of those books and deal with the Nazi occult aspects of what you were discussing.
Uh-huh.
What we've been discussing.
Oh, yeah, I know her book was all against the New Age people and the people that are turned on to alternative lifestyles and all that, but...
Yeah, but okay, well, she correctly pointed out that a lot of those people are being used as a front by the very people you're exposing.
Well, I think they are.
Yeah, well, I agree they are, but the main thing, I just thank you very much for letting me get third or fourth time about the Christy McManus or Central
Well,
Rural
now it's
area.
coming together because with all of this latest, when I read about the War College and degrees in mind control for 20 years and ejection of children like the Candy Jones story, then I think, hey, now it's time to really get, these top security clearances. These aren't the fringe group. This is the establishment. The knighthood is the establishment. So then it's time to put it all together. Thank you for calling, and keep in touch and write up some of these details for me.
Yeah, okay, I'll get back with you.
P.O. Box 22511, Carmel, California, Mae Brussell, and write up some of that for me so that I know some of the details and I can have it checked out if I can.
Oh, sure enough. Okay,
Thanks.
mine with those.
Bye-bye. Well, that's very helpful. There are a lot of people who have information on this subject. Not a lot, but enough that maybe some pieces can be put together of this horrible story. And there's been some books, a lot of books out, a bibliography that they had at the meeting yesterday in San Francisco. The following organizations and individuals have expressed support for this new group enough. They cited Affirming Children's Truth out of Manhattan Beach, Cavalcade Productions out of Ukiah, Child Assault Prevention in Alameda, Center for Abuse Prevention in San Mateo, Cult Crime Impact Network in Boise, Idaho, where there's quite a bit of that. Of course, this is the home area of the Aryan nations and the Nazis. Cult Crime Impact Network, that's at Boise. Family of Crimes of Silence, called Focus, in Canoga Park. Friends of Victimized Children, out of Gilroy, close to home. Justice for Kids, out of Berkeley, California. Justice for Sexually Abused Children in Miami. Motivation Unlimited, San Bernardino. Parents Anonymous, Los Angeles, California. That's just a few. This is Mae Brussell, 3753082. And you can call about anything you want in the news. We'll share some other information, but this, to me, is the very, very important story of really outside of, say, Watergate and Irangate and learning about the Knights of Malta. This is one more leap into that dark world of Allen Dulles and Heinrich Himmler and the bonds that I've been trying to talk about for years that tie them together. There's also a reading list given out yesterday, Peter Carroll, called Cult Crimes in San Francisco Magazine, August 1987. Linda Goldston, who's a reporter for the San Jose Mercury, wrote Sex Abuses, Who Protects the Children? San Jose Mercury News, May 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, and 21, 1987. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm going to switch it a little bit. I'm trying
That's okay.
to tie in more of writings of people like Torbett
Yes.
with Dan Sheehan's ideas and points,
Okay.
and the stuff you said.
Uh-huh.
And I called in last week asking about the thing that Sheehan is mentioning specifically with the team set up by Operation 40 with Nixon
Yes.
as being coincident with Osborne's thing, Torbett's thing. In the second paragraph of Chapter 6, he says, the group of 25 to 30 professional executioners have been based in Mexico and have been used by espionage agencies of the U.S. in various countries all over the world for political killings for the past 25 years.
Yes, I gave him that material. I gave him the Torbett document. He asked me what was going down in Mexico between all these people.
Right.
And I turned him on to the Torbett document in Oaxaca, Mexico.
Right.
And the school started by J. Edgar Hoover, who worked with Heinrich Himmler until we were bombed at Pearl Harbor. Again, Heinrich Himmler and the Waffen-SS and Hoover set this up down in Mexico for trained assassins who were disguised as priests. They wore the collar till they got inside the building, and then they started shooting things up.
Under the supervision of Osborne.
Albert Osborne, who was John Howard Bowen. For new listeners, this was one of the most important parts of the expose of the Kennedy assassination, which has never come out. I called G. Robert Blakey, the chief counsel for the House Select Committee on Investigations, and said, do you have the Torbett? And he said, I'm not going to tell you. I said, if you have it, I won't send it. If you have it, and he said, if you tell me where it is, I'll hang up on you. And I tried to explain that I would send him a copy, and he hung up on me. Luckily, I tape recorded that telephone conversation because he was chief counsel and wouldn't go into that. But a man named John Howard Bowen sat on the bus with Lee Harvey Oswald going from New Orleans to Mexico.
Right.
And they crossed the border, and as some of the listeners don't know, they tried to check John Howard Bowen and discovered his name was actually an alias, that he was Albert Osborne, wanted during World War II for burning American flags in Louisiana. Never out of style, his interests or tastes, and that he was named by assassins to kill Judge Floyd on a case earlier. And the whole connections of Lee Harvey Oswald to Albert Osborne prove without any single doubt the conspiratorial aspects of the murder of John Kennedy.
So I'm just curious, as far as what, at least, she and I heard him speak in Stanford a week ago on Tuesday.
Okay.
And I recorded that on my little Walkman.
Okay.
It was a long 2-hour speech at that point, in which previously I'd only heard him go back as far as 1946, 47 with the passage of the NSC Act.
Yes.
But this time he actually goes back to starting in 1938, talking about Halliwell and others, Chenault, who go over to China in 1938 from orders of Roosevelt to figure out what are the aspirations of the nation of Japan in Asia.
Yes.
And they start working with the Kuomintang there and the people who...
So he's back in that time period. That's very good.
Right. So, and he talks about Galen and stuff as he comes up through the war.
Yes.
But the thing that's interesting that he hasn't really mentioned at all yet is he still takes the line that the thing that begins with Nixon in 1959 in January is where... Actually, the way he says it, it still sounds like, and then in the middle of 1960, Operation 40 expands when he has Mayhew meet with Giancana and Roselli to organize a shooter force.
Yes.
Now, that's, then from what you're saying, that's not entirely accurate, or maybe there was something that that he was purported to have set up, but in fact it was already on rails for more than 2 decades.
Yeah, but one of the problems that he has, or that I always have, is he's going to give a speech for 2 hours.
Sure.
He's not going to tell you 40 years of history. He has to use selectively. It doesn't mean he won't use it. He's certainly open to more ideas than any single person in the United States has done under the given circumstances.
Absolutely.
So it's like Bill Moyers. Did you see the show on...
No, but I had my sister-in-law tape it. I'd like to see that, yeah.
Yeah, and I can do an analysis of that next week or later this evening. Bill Moyers, who was in the CIA, gives a very brilliantly constructed, probably the best overview on television for an hour and a half that's come out so far.
Right.
But Bill Moyers also has facts wrong, and the solution is as serious as a doctor making the wrong diagnosis.
Right.
And he begins with the secret team. He shows Russia invading Czechoslovakia and saying the Cold War begins when Russia invades Czechoslovakia and takes the eastern countries. That's when we switched allegiance from ally to enemy.
Right.
Well, the real bottom line, and I'll say it every week if necessary, like you do with advertising over and over again, the bottom line was in 1943 when Allen Dulles with the OSS and William Donovan met with Heinrich Himmler's agents, SS Karl Wolff, and cut their deal then.
Right.
While the war was still going, that Puniman and the aerospace people, von Braun and Dornberger, would be taken immediately to America. And on that program, he talks about Klaus Barbie. He said America cut a deal, and he almost used the word sold their soul out when they had Klaus Barbie. And he has while he's talking about Klaus Barbie, on the screen there's two different pictures of Reinhard Gehlen. But while Barbie was working in Europe, Gehlen was put into an American uniform. First he was knighted by the Vatican, then flown to the United States, where he and his mind, and he was chief of intelligence for Hitler rearming the Weimar Republic and head of the intelligence east. He helped set up what Bill Moyer called as that dangerous 1947 Security Council and CIA.
Right.
But that was Gehlen.
Right.
And we're not short of books or material so that Barbie didn't make American government decisions. He snitched on the resistance in France. But Gehlen lived in the United States, and his agent, to say it again, Otto von Bolschwing, was out here in California sharing his translator with Ronald Reagan.
Right.
And those are the bottom lines. But getting back to Sheehan, he's going further than any single person, and what he leaves out is a time problem. It isn't that he may not know as much as you know, because you listen every week, and he's not listening to these tapes.
Sure.
But it's a learning process, and he's certainly open to learn.
Well, no, it's very exciting, and I'm all I really do a lot of these days is make duplicates and send to basically anyone I can think of, because all the things he's saying, taken in their whole. I'm coming down this Saturday for your potluck. I'll try and bring some extras for people there, because I'm sure a lot of them would like to have copies. It's so inspiring to listen to this man, because in this speech at Stanford, particularly, the real title of the speech was "The Issue of Pretense and Reality in the Present Context."
The bright room called day is what we think is our reality, and the pretense that everything is sunny and everything is bright because the sun is out, and the reality is when the sun goes down. That's the real world.
And what's still there.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be very happy to hear that he, among other things, one of the biggest parts of his talk really was a clarion call. He said, we're doing a small part here at the Christic. We're going to prosecute these guys. And describing just briefly, what that's going to entail for them, this Herculean task. But we are imploring, we're pleading with you to do your part. And he lists crimes of patriots, Veil, Iran-Contra connection, the Great Heroin Coup, politics of heroin in Southeast Asia, about 7 or 8 other books.
How about the World Watcher tapes?
No, he doesn't mention those.
Have you ever asked him?
I couldn't ask. I tried to ask questions, but he
No, but do you write a letter or call back there?
Well, I've sent letters before to him, but I've never gotten answers.
I mean, references, for that material, if you're making tapes of that.
Right.
Are you...
Well, no, I called this woman, Eva Bertrand. She's head of resources, and I've sent her the tapes I've made of him speaking at Monterey. And then
No, not of his speaking.
What?
Of World Watchers. Have you ever sent those?
World Watchers as well.
How many of those have you sent to them?
I haven't sent them any of them.
Well, why not?
I guess because in a way I figured they wouldn't listen to him. I don't know.
Well, then how far can you go if you're not going to listen?
Well,
If you think if he's already set his boundaries, then why worry about the case?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right.
I mean, you don't have to bring those down. I have 75 tapes that I got this winter free because 75 people sent me Danny Sheehan speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they think I wouldn't have it anyway? But after a certain point, these people are on the move now, and he better move as fast as them. There was an article in the paper just this past week that John Singlaub has now gotten permission, according to the Washington Times. It says General John Singlaub has been tied by a lawsuit filed by the Christic Institute for months and months, subjected to financial drain and constant barrage of disinformation. He felt obliged under certain rules of the court not to go public, to raise defense funds or refute the charges against him that have popped up around the world. The judge in the case has now ruled that the public comment is allowed, that General Singlaub is elated, that he is going on the offensive, and the judge ruled against Christic Institute's attempt to put a gang of left-wing lawyers against Singlaub, and he ruled that Christic must reveal the sources of allegations that Singlaub was involved in gun running and drug deals and other nefarious activities. Sing Lau must meet his accusers. This is a guy who's been heading these death squads all these years.
Right.
The title of the article is On the Offensive.
What's the date?
Huh?
What's the date?
October 30th, 1987.
Wow.
Yeah, Washington Times, General Sing Lau's accusers said they couldn't reveal their sources
Right.
for fear they would be assassinated, and he set up Soldier of Fortune
Right.
with Robert Brown that does just that. So Sing Lau has been given permission to go on the aggressive.
Huh.
So lots of luck.
Yeah, right.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks for calling. Okay. Now, with 375-3082, I think that there is a lot to be put into that story back there. And the thing that I'm afraid, and I mention every week, is that the boundaries of what can be said or connected have been decided by people, whoever they are, within the organization, and that some things can be said and others cannot. And that's a hard way to run a case when you're fighting General Secord, John Sing Lau, Theodore Shackley, Thomas Kleins, Chichi Quintero, Albert Hakim. Most of those people, not Hakim, although he sent all the death weapons and supplied the Savak with the weapons, these are the killer teams. And a person needs all the ammunition they can get for the cannons. And it's very important to realize that if there are boundaries, what are they and who decides them? Before you all glow in the light about that suit, you better do some investigation about what part can't be said or heard and why not. That is very important. Those people that are so gaga over I was so excited about the fact that the suit was placed, but I have a lot of opinions. I can get enthusiastic tomorrow, or I can turn off completely depending on the way it goes and what is going on back there. But don't think this is the going to be the answer. I had that same enthusiasm when Mark Lane wrote Rush to Judgment and traveled around the country and had a bestseller book. And I thought, boy, we're really on the way to truth. You know, we're right there. He's got a case, and now it'll open up. And I'm not comparing, certainly, Danny Sheehan to Mark Lane in any shape or form. But when you have a good thing going, there are people who volunteer or get paid. And I don't know who sets the boundaries back there, but that is a key question. This is 375-3082. My name is Mae Brussell, and you can call up and talk about the things you want to share. There was a story this past week, November the 4th, that Ollie North went before the grand jury, and he is holding up. They don't know whether he gave the Fifth Amendment. He can't take his lawyer in, and he's a perfect job of mind control. I wouldn't be surprised if that Michael Aquino wasn't working on Ollie North when he was in the hospitals and was running around naked, shooting a gun, and put into mental hospital for one time. But North runs out in the hall and asks Brendan Sullivan what he should say, then goes back in the room. He leaves when necessary and consults the attorney, Mr. Sullivan. You saw him on television during the hearings. And according to this article, this was the New York Times, North has reportedly refused to cooperate with the investigation and has protested efforts by the prosecutors to obtain samples of his handwriting. Now, maybe he wrote Reagan's findings. A lot was destroyed, but what did Ollie North write? What was the forgery that he could get on? How important was it? Was it a presidential finding? And isn't that silly? Isn't that dumb that the grand jury can't get his writing? He's wearing a uniform right now. Why not get from the Pentagon his writing? He's a government employee with the emergency service still right in the Pentagon. How difficult would it be to get a sample of that writing? He endorses checks and has mail, and it seems to me you wouldn't have to plead and beg, and he says, no, you can't have it, when there's a lot of signature on a lot of pieces of paper. So Ollie North this past week was saying, I'm not going to let you see how I write. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, you said that you think that this Aquino guy may have been involved with mind control.
No, I didn't say he may have been. I said he was, that his expertise is psychological warfare in Southeast Asia, and that's what he did. Not may have been. He is a master and a student and a person who has practiced mind control for the United States government with extensive ideas on what to do with it that I'll have on the air in the coming weeks.
Oh, so you're going to go into that specifically?
Well, what I said was I gave an overview of the articles and that I would fill in those pieces that he was part of the mind control.
Yeah, because I think that's pretty significant because they're doing these child molestations.
Well, it's sure significant. He was an expertise in Southeast Asia. In a war situation, he's injecting children whose parents leave them off to play at a nursery school, who are taken out of the school to an apartment in San Francisco, who holds top security clearance, and speaking of mind control, does rituals at Heinrich Himmler's castle with the Joint Chiefs of Staff that are members of the Temple of Set.
Yeah, that was another thing. Does it say, like, specifically what members of the Joint Chiefs?
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
Right.
Well, you think they say Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mr. Abrams, or Westmoreland, or whatever? Of course not. He did rituals in the Westphalia, the castle of Heinrich Himmler at the time of 1982 NATO exercises. Of course, we don't have a list of who's in his temple. That's what we have to insist.
It's pretty specific that high-up officials in the U.S. military are working closely with this group.
They're not working closely. They're members of the temple.
They actually are.
Yes.
I don't know exactly who, but they actually are members of it.
Yes. And he's an advisor to the Joint Chief and part of liaison to NATO. You've followed these stories of Himmler and so forth for many, many years. What do you think of this story?
Well, one of the things I think is significant is, like, okay, a lot is made out of the satanic aspects of it, but I think perhaps more significant is the mind control aspect.
And the military.
Exactly.
Yeah, see, I've had these books like The Spear of Destiny and Dusty Sklar's book. I've had these books on the satanic, the Hitler role, but the importance of the satanic goes into the mindset of the attraction of people for Adolf Hitler, that Rudolf Hess was the one who, and he was the genius behind Hitler. He shared a cell and helped write Mein Kampf, and he used the astrologers, and he was part of the Thule Society and the early societies that were satanic. The origin of the power of these people comes from the knighthood, and when I read you some of the descriptions of their rituals or so forth, it is political, and it involves the military, because he is a professor, teaches at Golden Gate, or did, and has taught political science and got his doctor's degrees, 2 of them. He's supposed to have an IQ of 155, 2 doctor's degrees in politics, and his expertise in Southeast Asia was mind control, and he has an obsession with Nazis and Nazi lore and the knighthood and the annihilation of almost everyone around except a few. He touches all the bases. That's why I say part 1 of this broadcast, and I'll do more details in the weeks to come.
The other thing is, about 2 years ago, there were all these stories about missing kids.
Oh, yes.
Their pictures on milk cartons.
Oh, yes.
And stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I could never... The figures, when I read into it, were enormous.
I know,
like
tremendous.
Thousands of kids disappearing per year.
That's right.
And I couldn't figure out, where they were going.
Well, luckily I saved those articles. I saved things on satanic murders, and Barbara and I are cleaning out and separating my files now on ways to kill, who was killed, various kinds of murders that I think will be invaluable for the years to come. And I have a lot of satanic murders and missing children. And I've saved them through the years because I knew there were these connections. But this now affirms all of it in the fact that he still has his top security clearance, and that the San Francisco police are not going to prosecute, probably, unless there's enough pressure, and the Presidio Army doesn't intend to bring him into the child molestation case at all, even though they were taken from the custody of the man who's been charged to the apartment of Mr. Aquino.
What I was wondering is, does the information you've been going through indicate that there may be some kind of a tie-in between these satanic cults and these enormous numbers of kids disappearing?
It doesn't go that far yet. This is just taking children off the school, and also, disappearing. The linkage of the McMartin people told about children being killed as sacrifice. So, of course, if parents thought they were missing, that was part of it. Also, remember, or some people don't remember, that Jim Jones was given custody of children, the case daycare centers or former drug addicts or people whose families didn't want them. And he was given permission to take them down to Guyana. And when they all were dead down there, face down, on the cover of Newsweek and Time, you see them with tags on their arms and ankles. And those were experimentation tags. When I was corresponding with prisoners, they were telling me about things that they had to wear similar to that. And this was before they were identified, so that they were taken from the state of California to Guyana for experimentations. And he had enough drugs there for a community for 10,000 people. So a lot, and then the children were not identified. They knew some of them, and instead of identifying them, they put them in a mass grave, about 268 of them in Oakland, with only one sign that says mass grave from Jonestown. And of course, I'll bet those are plenty of the missing children who were just swept down there for whatever they were going to do.
Yeah.
And the police covered all that up. They covered up his molestation, his sexual problems in Los Angeles. The LAPD covered up Jim Jones and his, that part of the operation there. Again, the common thread of all of these people who spoke yesterday, and there were quite a few. As I say, there's 3 tapes available that I'm going to be ordering. The common denominator of every single one is that the law enforcement would not cooperate. And that's really scary.
Well, it is, and we've seen this over and over again.
Well, yeah, over and over, except the tune gets worse.
Okay, well,
thanks for calling.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, now, 375-3082. I'll take your calls. This is Mae Brussell. I'm glad that you appreciate the importance of this subject tonight. Sometimes after I do 1 hour of World Watchers, you call about something not related to that, which is okay. We don't have much time to cover a lot of bases. But I think you're getting the point tonight, and I appreciate that, how serious this is. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, Mae.
Hi.
I'm calling in regards to Bill Moyer's program on the secret government.
Okay.
And in spite of the fact that it was just chock full of a lot of information, I thought that the most pertinent thing that was brought out in that program was in regard to this group of women who had organized a group, and they were monitoring the Iran-Contra hearings.
Yes.
And you remember what they said? This one woman said the people don't want their eyes open, because if this happens, then they will have to do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, I figure, and I've said this many, many times on the air, that the excuse for, and there are a lot of excuses and reasons, that they don't want to know because then they have to do something. But I also believe that the reason they can't do anything is that they're not capable. Because this is very elitist and very nasty, and a lot of people aren't going to like it, but I have seen people explain something over and over and over again, and it isn't because they'd have to do anything. They don't even know what you're talking about. Not the faintest idea. They don't, it takes a certain amount of gray cells to come together to have an idea. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the brainwashing we talk about, the CIA brainwashing, Defense Department, the brainwashing begins the moment you're born. It belongs with your parents. It belongs with your schools. It belongs with your minister or your rabbi. Mm-hmm. And when you break those 3 bonds, when you go against what they drummed into you for 18 years, and then you are dependent upon them for college education, or you can't get anywhere anyway, when you can't break those bonds, you've been told certain things, and to break that is a disloyalty to your only peer group. And many people don't have the courage to transfer from that peer group to the unknown. Mm-hmm. Now, I changed my relationships with family, sibling. I was always close to my parents, former friends, people, until if they had no comprehension about what I was doing, I had nothing in common with them. Because you can talk ad infinitum, and they don't have the gray matter. It's like a car that won't start. It isn't that they say, oh, if you tell me that Albert Osborne was involved down in Mexico, these assassins, and that Kennedy didn't kill, Oswald didn't kill John Kennedy, they still don't understand what is said.
Well, I think that this particular statement these women made is maybe one reason why the Iran-Contra Committee didn't ask the pertinent questions.
No, the Iran-Contra Committee didn't ask pertinent questions because a Mr. Polgar was chief of investigation, and he was CIA station chief in Saigon, following Theodore Shackley and Klein's. He took their job. And Mr. Arthur Lyman, the chief counsel, is the attorney for Robert Vesco. It talks about it. It was in the newspapers. And Vesco is a partner client with Willard Zucker over in Switzerland, who carries the accounts for the National Security Council. And he's a partner in the cocaine dealing with Carlos Leder Rivas. And Vesco is involved with scandals of William Casey going back to Watergate. They were never meant to get to the truth.
Yeah.
It wasn't that people were scared. Their questions never involved pertinent matters. I can't wait to read the hearing to see just how bad they were.
Well, maybe this is the reason why members of Congress don't want to touch the information of people such as Bill Greitz and Daniel Sheehan.
Well, I think people in Congress are there because they've already been weaned out from the time of college and high school and profession to have the position they've had, and those people who could figure it out don't get the money to run for elections or have car accidents or early cancers and airplane crashes. And as I'm separating those articles now on public officials that have died, congressmen that have died, it's just shocking, the large statistic of young people who have that disease called apparent heart attack, or Philip Hart, the conscience of the Senate, who died so young of cancer, and Frank Church, who died of cancer, and Jacob Javits with that Guillain-Barré, and Hubert Humphrey, the cancer. I mean, you begin to add it all up. And Barbara Jordan dying of this crippling disease. Add it all up, but I'm not going to do it tonight. And you just don't have people in Congress who survived wanting to do something. They're not there anymore.
Well, I also had another thought was maybe this is why Leon Panetta doesn't want to take the time to come and visit your house and see how you do your research, because he's afraid he's going to find out, well, you aren't coming from outer space and that you have basis for the things you're saying. He doesn't want to cope with it.
He doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
he wants to represent.
He doesn't want to have his eyes opened, because then he would have to do something about it.
Oh, that's a case exactly.
He doesn't want to do
See,
it.
He doesn't want to do it because it would require him then to say and not work on a need to know, I've seen the material, holy mackerel. He doesn't want that because
he doesn't want to have to go out on a limb either.
No, or into a car accident or other things that happen to people who begin to see the.
That's why it's so hard for Daniel Sheehan to get his information.
No, I'm not criticizing him for it.
And the drug thing, because these people make waves where then they get knocked off.
Yeah, but when it may be okay to have this David McMichael or George McMichael working for you. But with this kind of a suit, I wouldn't hire a former CIA to discriminate on what information can be used in my office.
Yeah.
See,
I agree with you there.
You see, the case of John Judge in Washington, he made an appointment to go over there. He went there. McMichael was supposed to see him with another researcher. He's done 20 years research and is knowledgeable on these things. And McMichael didn't even show up, and the person who was to see John was downstairs at the front door, didn't even let him in the building. So, but who hires those people?
Yeah.
It's a terribly complex problem.
People won't look past their noses.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why some people won't look past, some aren't there to look past. They're there to cover this thing up and do it very successfully. And it's a complex problem because those people who are able to do something can't get through. It's very frustrating, but it's realistic considering the power of these people.
Like
Listen,
the churches of the world.
Yeah. Listen, thanks for calling.
You're very welcome.
Okay, now that's it for this evening. I'm going to wind this up. This is Mae Brussell. The views expressed here are those of myself and do not necessarily reflect the views of Kazoo staff or board of directors. And those people that call in and use names of particular people with discretion and can follow it up, I am responsible for them and their calls and not the station. I want to say that too, because there's some controversial material coming in, and it's very important to hear that information. We've heard it before, and now it's pertinent to the news. So this is May. I'll be back with you next week. Hang in there now. Jim Bourne is going to put on some jazz. Have a good week, and I'll be back with you next.
Seconds after 9 o'clock, this is KAZU FM, Monterey, Pacific Grove, Santa Cruz.